Sports gambling addiction lawsuit. Sports betting app claims. Gambling addiction lawsuit claims center on the argument that online platforms like DraftKings and FanDuel were deliberately designed to foster compulsive betting and exploit vulnerable users. Victims report devastating financial losses, mental health struggles, and family disruption tied to apps that marketed risk-free bets and encouraged constant play. TorHoerman Law is helping victims seek accountability from operators that prioritize profit while leaving individuals and their loved ones to bear the consequences. If you or a loved one suffered significant losses or mental health injuries due to sports betting app addiction, visit THLawyer.com and use our chatbot to find out if you qualify for the sports gambling addiction lawsuit today. The growing crisis of sports betting app addiction. Online gambling platforms have revolutionized betting, offering constant access that has fueled a rise in gambling addiction. Though marketed as safe and regulated, lawsuits and research show that mobile wagering has driven compulsive behaviors among thousands of users. Legal actions now allege that operators like DraftKings and FanDuel design their apps to exploit the brain's reward system, keeping users hooked through instant feedback loops that encourage risky, compulsive betting. What begins as casual play often escalates into chasing losses, overspending, and loss of control. The harm extends beyond finances. Depression, anxiety, and broken relationships are common, with family members often left to manage drained savings and emotional fallout. Studies, regulatory fines, and consumer complaints reveal that the damage is systemic, not isolated. Both the general public and courts are increasingly acknowledging that addiction fueled by these platforms cannot be dismissed as mere personal responsibility. Legal action offers affected individuals and families a path to hold companies accountable for profiting while ignoring the consequences of their designs. Allegations in the sports betting lawsuits. Sports betting operators like DraftKings and FanDuel marketed themselves as safe, regulated alternatives to illegal gambling, claiming that they could control the environment to protect players. In reality, lawsuits allege that these platforms use technology to make gambling easier, faster, and constant, not safer. Apps were engineered for 24/7 accessibility, encouraging users to bet anywhere, anytime. Promotions, push notifications, texts, and VIP services actively nudged gamblers to keep playing, while marketing campaigns flooded nearly every channel from TV to social media, normalizing gambling and attracting a new generation of bettors. Instead of installing effective safeguards, platforms allegedly rewarded high-spending users through VIP programs, offering exclusive perks and personal hosts who encouraged larger and more frequent bets, even when users showed signs of addiction. These companies also sold legalization to lawmakers and the public as a major tax generator, promising to deliver new state revenue. However, those projections have fallen short. In some states, gambling companies are writing off advertising expenses as tax deductions, effectively lowering their tax bills while expanding their marketing reach. Meanwhile, evidence shows that gambling legalization correlates with higher financial distress. A 2025 analysis found bankruptcy filings rose roughly 25–30% and debt collections increased about 8% in states that legalize sports betting. Together, these lawsuits argue that the industry misrepresented itself as safe and economically beneficial while creating systemic harm, exploiting users' psychological vulnerabilities, destabilizing families, and burdening state economies. Do you qualify for the sports gambling addiction lawsuits? You may qualify if you place sports bets through an online gambling app such as DraftKings or FanDuel. You lost significant amounts of money, often $25,000 or more, due to compulsive gambling, debt, or repeated attempts to chase losses. You have been diagnosed with a gambling disorder or related condition, including depression, anxiety, or compulsive behaviors linked to gambling. You attempted to stop gambling using self-exclusion tools, cool-off periods, or personal restraint, but the app continued to send promotions, push notifications, or VIP offers. You started gambling at a young age, even under 18, when the risks of addictive behavior and long-term effects are especially high. Family members or loved ones noticed harmful changes, such as money problems, withdrawal, or mounting stress, tied directly to gambling activity. If you fit one or more of these criteria, you may qualify. Contact TorHoerman Law for a free legal consultation to find out if you qualify today. What platforms are being investigated for legal action? A growing number of lawsuits and regulatory actions are targeting major online gambling platforms for the way they encourage compulsive gambling and exploit vulnerable users. Platforms under investigation include DraftKings facing lawsuits over deceptive, risk-free bets, continued access for self-excluded players, and manipulative app design. FanDuel, accused in lawsuits of using VIP hosts, perks, and targeted promotions to keep gamblers spending increasing amounts. Flutter Entertainment, parent company of FanDuel, named in lawsuits for corporate oversight failures. Other U.S. sportsbooks, including Caesars, BetMGM, and Barstool, have drawn state fines and regulatory attention for advertising practices and responsible gaming lapses. This is an evolving litigation as our team and other attorneys conduct additional investigations. The scope of platforms is likely to change. The mental health impact of gambling addiction. The DSM-5/DSM-5 TR classifies gambling disorder as the only non-substance addictive disorder, grouped with substance-related and addictive disorders for its similar effects on the brain's reward system. It involves a persistent pattern of tolerance, irritability when stopping, chasing losses, and significant life disruption. Research shows severe mental health impacts. In a study cited by the APA, 14% of sports bettors reported suicidal thoughts and 10% reported suicide attempts. Broader data link gambling disorder to anxiety, depression, substance use. Sports betting poses heightened risk due to constant, rapid markets and perceived skill, while slot machines are dangerous for their continuous play, both riskier than slower forms like lottery. Young men are most affected as mobile access expands, and since legalization, signs of harm, including addiction, help seeking, and related online searches have risen in parallel with the growth of online sportsbooks. Common health effects of gambling disorder include depression and mood disturbance often emerge with escalating losses and impaired control. Anxiety, irritability, and sleep disruption, especially during attempts to cut down or stop. Suicidal ideation and attempts. Gambling disorder carries among the highest suicide risk of any addictive disorder. Substance use comorbidity, alcohol, nicotine, other drugs, and worsened outcomes when conditions co-occur. Cognitive distortions like illusion of control, near misses, hot hand, that reinforce betting despite harm. Stress-related physical complaints like headaches, GI issues, often secondary to chronic financial and interpersonal strain. Functional impairment in work/school, relationships, and finances, debt, bankruptcy, frequently intensified by chasing losses. Worse outcomes among online sports bettors compared with many other forms of gambling, driven by 24/7 access and constant wagering opportunities as opposed to slot machines' fixed session context. Gambling disorder is an addictive disorder recognized by the DSM. Potentially recoverable damages in gambling addiction lawsuits. Damages in gambling addiction lawsuits reflect the financial and personal losses caused by compulsive gambling. Because this area of law is still evolving, available damages vary based on how courts assess operator conduct and emerging case law. Claims may seek recovery for financial losses, medical care, therapy, and long-term mental health support, covering both the economic impact and the personal toll on victims and their families. Examples of potentially recoverable damages include recovered gambling losses, partial or total, depending on the facts of the case, medical expenses related to treatment for mental health conditions, such as depression or anxiety caused by gambling addiction, therapy and counseling costs, including specialized treatment for gambling disorder or behavioral addictions, rehabilitation program expenses for inpatient or outpatient care addressing compulsive gambling, lost wages or diminished earning capacity if gambling behavior interfered with employment, financial counseling or debt management costs tied to repairing damage from compulsive betting, emotional distress damages for the psychological impact on victims and, in some cases, their loved ones. TorHoerman Law, accepting new clients in the gambling addiction lawsuit. The rise of lawsuits against DraftKings, FanDuel, and other online gambling platforms reflects a growing recognition that these companies may have prioritized profit over consumer protection. Victims of gambling disorder are coming forward with stories of significant financial losses, mental health struggles, and families torn apart by compulsive gambling behaviors fueled by manipulative app design. TorHoerman Law is actively investigating claims on behalf of individuals who suffered harm, with a focus on recovering losses and securing compensation for medical treatment, therapy, and related damages. Our law firm is committed to helping hold powerful operators accountable and giving a voice to those who were left vulnerable by platforms engineered to encourage addictive play. If you or a loved one developed a gambling addiction, lost significant money, or face mental health consequences tied to online sports betting apps, you may have legal options. Contact TorHoerman Law today to learn whether you qualify for the gambling addiction lawsuit and take the first step toward recovery and justice. You can also use the chat feature on this page to find out if you qualify for the gambling addiction lawsuit.